I hope everybody's doing well today. I want to welcome everybody to the Unimpressed Podcast today. And today we have someone calling in from New York, the Hudson Valley area, and they call him Danny Loves Pasta, Mr. Danny Freeman. I want to welcome you to the show. Danny, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So if you're making a lot of pasta and you got this little twist about how you make pasta, are you Italian first of all?
Yeah, so my mother is Italian-American. That's where I learned how to make pasta. I grew up eating pasta from her and from my grandmother, definitely.
Nice. So when we were talking on here earlier, you said you were a lawyer and you made this transition to something. It's pretty unique because I don't think I've ever seen anything like that with the type of pasta you make. What was the inspiration behind that? And, how did it grow from that inspiration?
I was working as a lawyer. I worked for a lawyer for about a decade. I started at a corporate law firm. That was not for me. I switched to working for a nonprofit in New York City, which I really enjoyed. I really liked it a lot. And when COVID hit, we went remote, like a lot of places. Court was shut down. And so I was kind of bunkered down with my husband, and our daughter was born in 2020. And so Christmas 2020 rolls around, and for the first time in my entire life, I didn't go home for Christmas. I always would go home to see my parents and my grandparents. My grandmother would always make fresh pasta for Christmas. And pasta's always been my favorite food. So my pasta making journey started that Christmas when I couldn't go home. So I decided to cook kind of all the traditional foods we would eat, including fresh pasta. I made it using my grandmother's recipe, and I FaceTimed her to show her, and it was not the same as a regular Christmas, but we made do. Then a few days after Christmas, my grandmother, she ended up, she was rushed to the hospital and she passed away very unexpectedly. It was not COVID. She was 96 years old, but she had not been sick before then. And it was really hard on me. I was very, very close with her. At the same time, my parental leave was ending. I was going back to work as a lawyer. I was a new parent, not sleeping through the night. It was just not the best time. But I continued to make pasta to feel close to my grandmother or to kind of have some time to myself. I would do it late at night or during nap time. And I started posting it on social media, initially just to kind of show what I was learning and show traditional shapes. And it just sort of took off from there. I didn't start with any intentions to ever leave my job as a lawyer. I just started posting.
You said you make fresh pasta. Do you make the noodles yourself? You buy the noodles? How does that work?
Yeah, I make all the dough and the noodles myself. A basic fresh pasta dough is just flour and egg. So that's what I started with. But then I started experimenting by adding different ingredients to the dough. I added vegetables like spinach or beets or spices or herbs to get different colored dough using all natural ingredients. Then I started experimenting with patterns and different shapes. And that's where things kind of went much less traditional. That's what I became known for on TikTok, is really kind of weird pasta shapes and pasta colors.
When you look at it, you're like, what is that? People
Yeah.
are very, very intrigued because it's a very interesting hook. So you're saying that the colors are not a dye or anything like that. The colors are actually vegetables and actually good for you?
Yeah, the colors are vegetables, spinach, basil, parsley to get green, beets, red peppers, either like puree a vegetable and add it, or use a dry spice like paprika or turmeric or something like that.
I was in North Caldwell, New Jersey for 12 and a half years. Half my family's Italian. I actually built North Caldwell back in 1951 at the bottom of the hill. And I think my uncle Art Ruffalo went up, built the second part of North Caldwell in 1957. When you think about that, and I go to this little place over here, and they're from Italians from Rome. And she says that yeast is dead in America. Do you have any thoughts on that since you make your stuff fresh?
You mean like the yeast that we buy is not, I'm not an expert on yeast, but I did have some friends get really into yeast cultivation during the pandemic. And people were saying there's a big difference between kind of like a homegrown yeast versus the one that you buy in little packets. So
making, I guess I'm trying to create a comparison here. So making the pasta from scratch, can you tell a difference between what you make from scratch than maybe what you buy in the store?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a traditional box of pasta that you buy at the store is just flour and water. So fresh pasta, you don't have to put eggs in it, but often people do. So It's got kind of a richer, eggy flavor. But even without that, you can definitely taste a difference. I mean, it's not, it still tastes like pasta. It's not drastically different, but it kind of has that fresh flavor that you can't really replicate with a box.
When you started making these collars and all this stuff, I mean, was this inspired by your kid? I mean, is this where the inspiration came from to do this, to entertain? What were you thinking?
Yeah, my daughter's been a big part of it. She loves eating pasta, so adding spinach or something is a good way to get some vegetables in. She now is old enough that she likes certain characters. She likes Minnie Mouse, she likes Peppa Pig, so I've made pasta that looks like her favorite characters. She really liked, and then people on TikTok then were asking me to make their favorite character, so that turned into kind of a series. My daughter likes to be in the kitchen with me, so she will help me knead the dough, or I don't know, she just kind of plays with it. But it's funny because I guess it's not funny, but something I've thought about a lot is that I started making this transition in my life at a time when my grandmother had passed away and my daughter was born. It was like, I had to sort of think about, how do I keep my grandmother's traditions alive? Or what do I pass on to my daughter? How do I make new traditions for her? So I was just very contemplative at that time in my life, thinking about how do I intentionally, keep my grandmother's memory alive, because she meant so much to me, but also create new memories for my daughter. And this is one of the ways I've been doing that.
Do you do lives and things like that?
I sometimes do lives. Most of the videos I post are not live. I record them and edit them, but every once in a while I'll jump on a live.
How has this transitioned into a business? When did you get a trickle of started making some money? And tell me a little bit about that.
I started making money after I'd gained maybe a couple 100,000 followers. Just sporadically, with brands would reach out and say, we have this product, we think you might like it. It usually was a food product or kitchen product. Would you be willing to create a video discussing this product or using it? And so that was a little bit of money. And when I first left my job as a lawyer, I had only done maybe one of those. I was not really having too much of a steady income, but I was very, very lucky with that. When I talked to my job, they said I took a leave of absence for a year is how we structured it. So I knew I could go back to that job, at the end of a year. During that time is when things started taking off. So brand deals is probably one of the biggest ways that I have been able to make income. Now I have a manager, so she will look for brand deals. She negotiates them, which is a huge help. She's very good at that. I also, about a year in, was approached by book agents to see if I'd ever thought of writing a cookbook. So we put together a proposal. She pitched it to different publishers, and several publishers were interested, and I signed a deal with one of them. So my cookbook, also called Danny Loves Pasta, is out in June, available for pre-order now everywhere. So that, was another way I was able to get income, and that I knew would be, a long-term project that I could work on.
So the book part, now, did you get in advance on the book?
Yeah, I got an advance. I mean, it's split over multiple payments. So it wasn't like, all at once. I haven't even gotten all the payments yet because some of them, are timed out. But that gave me a big boost of confidence that I knew I had that to work for at least for a year or so to keep me going.
So if we're reading the book, what are we getting out of the book?
The book is pretty much everything pasta. It's a how-to guide on how to make fresh pasta from scratch. If you've never made it before, you have no special equipment, no pasta machine. It'll teach you how to make it. Then it'll teach you how to incorporate vegetables and things like that, like I do. It'll teach you some fun colors and shapes. And then there's a whole section of sauce recipes. So if you never want to make fresh pasta, you just want to use a box of pasta, there's a bunch of sauce recipes in there that come from things I grew up eating or things I make as a parent. Kind of my philosophy on a lot of sauces is I have a toddler. I don't always have a ton of time. Quick and easy, but good homemade sauces is what I was going for.
Now, what part of Italy, you talked about your grandmother, and she was a little bit of inspiration about this. What part of Italy is your grandmother from?
Well, she was born here, but her family was from southern Italy. They came over, her and my grandfather's families came over kind of in the Ellis Island boom from southern Italy, sort of near Naples, at the turn of the century, when a lot of other Italian Americans came here, or Italians came here.
Because if you're trying to emulate, a heritage, what's the angle of the sauces for you personally?
My sauces and my cooking, it's heavily influenced by the Italian American kind of Jersey style of cooking. Sometimes people who are in Italy say, "Oh, that's not how we do it. That's not how we do it," which I totally respect. But I obviously have an Italian American American angle on things, given where I came from. So, a good red sauce, a good Sunday sauce with meats in it, pestos, things like that. Some quick sauces. My mother would always make, she still does make tomato sauce. We'd have kind of the weekend sauce and then the quick sauce during the week. So definitely some of that Jersey coming in.
Jersey. Now, what part of Jersey? You lived in Jersey a little bit too?
I grew up in upstate New York, outside of Albany, but my grandmother's family she was born in Orange County, kind of that part of Jersey before moving to New York. And when I was growing up, she still had family there. It definitely had a little more of that.
So what was your grandmother's last name?
Her last name was Allegretti, which is my middle name. Is my grandfather's last name, and her maiden name was Caggiano.
Because that's close to where my family was from. Because Art moved the whole family from Newark over to North Caldwell area. There was a big influence of Italians right there in that little pocket back in the day. Expanding on your business and so forth, are you looking to expand this more? What are you looking to do? Are you content on what's going on? And
I'm happy with everything that's happened, but I definitely would like to expand. I definitely have a lot of ambitions and sort of keeping my eye on the horizon of where I could go. The book is coming out in June. So that's been a big project, a big focus. I'm going to be doing a big publicity push. But beyond that, I would love to one day do more television appearances, maybe have products out in stores that are in the vein. I would love to write another cookbook. I'd love to, although my focus now, because this book is all pasta, I certainly can cook things other than pasta. And I'd love to expand a little bit into other types of my style food, which is sort of family oriented, quick, but good Italian-American-ish food. I was on the Rachel Ray show last year. I know her show's ending, but I'd love to do more cooking segments on TV. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, let me ask you this. Could you do 15 hours a week live on TikTok? If we set up some programming and you do 15 hours a week where you cook, say 7 p.m. or whatever the best time for you to cook is, you go in there and you cook these meals live on TikTok. And we put together a schedule and we develop some programming. What would you think about something like that?
I mean, that's about 2 hours a day-ish. It seems feasible to do in the evenings after my daughter goes to bed, spend some time on TikTok Live, cooking with people. I don't know if I could keep it up every single day, but, it sounds possible.
The only reason I asked, we just signed a deal, the first major, U.S. liaison for their live creators program. And if we put you into our network, our agency, you'll get incentivized and bonuses and things like that. Because there's a huge push. I don't know if you've seen on TikTok where a lot of the normal content is kind of dialed down a lot on views. Mm-hmm. And the reason they're dialing down on views is because they're really going to go heavy into this live program. And that's going to be their thing moving forward. But I think there's a pretty big upside in that space. Some guys are making $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and it's really just creating consistency. But I think with the visual that you have and you create a little bit of consistency, you could probably do pretty well.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, which is that these any social media app, any kind, they're always making changes. There's always something new they're prioritizing. And something I have thought about with my own social media career and something I've talked about with other people is you can't be too dependent on any one thing. So, for someone like me who does a lot of videos, it's good to get into live, which is now being prioritized. It's good to work with different apps. You're probably right. I should be doing more of it, really, because, if you get stuck in one thing and then that no longer is the priority, you're going to be scrambling to catch up to what's next. So definitely giving me something to think about.
Yeah, but I'll send some information outside of that. Your husband and so forth, what is that like? What's that dynamic like, raising a child and you cooking? What does your husband do?
He works for a tech company. For a while before COVID, I was a lawyer. I was working a lot of hours and he would travel a lot for work. We had no kids at that time, and we really made that work. And then everything kind of changed, for everyone with the pandemic. But now he works from home. I work from home. I only have a 2-year-old. So it's a very different dynamic than it used to be, but it's nice that we're both here. My daughter goes to our friend's house a couple days a week, and then other days she spends all day here with us. So it's nice he's working all day because he has a much more traditional job, but it's nice he doesn't have a commute or anything. He can just come down and play when work is over.
I guess my best friend is gay and he has a partner, and I know what their lifestyle is like. I don't know if I could see a 2-year-old, showing up in their lives and them be able to handle it. How much of a disruption or difference was it compared to where you were at? And then now you got this 2-year-old running around. What was that change like?
Yeah, but I think about my life now versus 3 years ago, it's pretty much the opposite. I mean, we were never, wild people, but we were living in Manhattan and, no kids, and we're going out to eat and going to restaurants and seeing friends and traveling, as much as we were able to other countries and things like that. Now that's not really a thing for us anymore, but I appreciate all of that, but I definitely don't regret, I don't have any regrets about where I am now. I love being a dad. It's the best thing I've ever done. I love my daughter so much, so I'm happy with the change, but it is a change. You're right.
How hard of a process is that, doing that?
Yeah, she was born via surrogate, which is a long process, not an easy one, but one obviously that was successful for us, thankfully. So we put a lot of planning into it. We knew we wanted to have kids. We started the process a couple years before she was born, and I think we were as ready as we could be by the time she was born. I mean, we didn't really exactly know what to expect with a newborn, but we had sort of mentally gotten to that place because we've been in the process for a long time.
Do y'all get to choose the mother, and how does that work?
So traditionally, or often the way it's done is, or at least for a gay couple like us, you have an egg donor and you have a surrogate, and it's two separate people. Sometimes people think of choosing an egg donor or a sperm donor as, you're like, go to a sperm bank or an egg bank and you never meet the person and it's all anonymous. And that is still what happens, but for some people, but definitely nowadays, a lot of people encourage you to find a donor that or get to know them. If it's someone in your life or someone you meet through this process, so your child will have a relationship with them. You will know them. You'll have all their health information. So we were connected to an amazing, amazing person and got to know her. And, she's still in our lives, which I'm very happy with.
Is that an odd dynamic? I mean, if she's still in your life and, she's the surrogate mother, if you will, I mean, what is that experience like? Is there any emotional attachment from her? I mean, did she experience anything that was, that she didn't expect? Is that stuff y'all talk through this process and so forth? I mean, do y'all help each other out, since you're kind of committed to this scenario, and then the baby shows up and you don't know what emotions are going to happen? Do y'all have to talk through that kind of stuff? Yeah,
that's something that, I think we were able to talk through. I hope from both of their perspectives, they felt comfortable talking about with us. I don't want to, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of queer people, gay people, can have a little bit more expansive ideas about family, and never felt threatening to have another person in our family or to have an unconventional family. And I think from their perspective, they went into the process knowing that we'd be raising the child, but they'll always have a connection. And for my daughter's sake, I hope she will always feel the connection as well.
I think a lot of times people can, you are who you are in life. And I think a lot of people assume a lot of things with certain scenarios like that. And I think if you can educate people more about those situations, and expand the topic more and have more transparency and make people really understand. Because when you hear, it's like in those scenarios, you just hear buzzwords, you know what I'm saying? Surrogate, mother, and this and that. And you don't really know totally what the process is. I never hear about a full story, how it affects parties and so forth. And I don't know if there's any content ever made with anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about it before going into it, because you're right. There's sometimes you hear news stories about something, or surrogacy gone wrong or something, or a celebrity has done it, but it's hard to really know what it's like. And I feel lucky because nowadays there's basically a generation of donor-conceived people who are now adults who are sharing their stories on TikTok and other places, talking about what their parents did well, or what they wish had gone differently, or what they don't advocate for or do advocate for. So I have learned a lot from kind of the generation my age now but that my daughter will one day be. So I didn't know about that whole world before I started looking into it. You're right, you don't hear about it a ton, but there are people out there now, thankfully, talking about their own experiences. And that's been a big influence on me and how I talk to my daughter about things.
I know that, any life that comes to a family is something, great for anybody, when you bring someone else into the family that you love and care about and want to guide that direction, that's a big deal for anybody. As far as you got the book coming out, what's the passion the next year for Danny?
I'm hoping that the book will introduce me to more people, to a bigger audience. Hopefully there'll be some press around the book, and maybe, in the fall or in the next year, I could start doing some cooking segments on TV, on talk shows or even online, really to spread the message. A lot of my cooking, both with the pasta and without, is really about how cooking can be fun. My cooking is not super serious, as you can see from the videos and the colors I'm using, but it can be fun. It's something I can do with my daughter and other people can do with their kids. So hopefully I can continue to spread that.
I'll have Mimi reach out to you about this TikTok thing. Opportunities for, if you're plugged into our system, there's opportunities for additional bonuses. There's opportunities to go to corporate TikTok. From a creative standpoint, that was the first thing I thought about when I saw the video. And I was like, that really pops. You could really build a good relationship with TikTok, and I could dial you into, where you can have someone to do training, like a person to do training with you and talk to you. And they're really looking for people to take this live thing serious. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a ground floor thing. It may not seem like a big deal now, but if you were on this ground floor, created some consistency with that type of visual, next thing you knew, you're a partner with TikTok. If there's anything else you want to cover today? I mean, I tried to dig in a little bit about different things in your life. I kind of like to unearth the person, and hopefully we taught somebody something today from a business aspect.
Danny Loves Pasta on TikTok or Instagram. The book is Danny Loves Pasta. It's easy to remember. You can find that on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you get your books.
Check out the book, Danny Loves Pasta. And this is Mr. Danny Freeman, and I'm John Edmonds Cosma, the CEO of Bang Productions.